What if I told you that one question could completely change your marriage, your parenting, your stress levels, your confidence, and the atmosphere of your own home? And listen, by the end of this episode, I'm going to give you that question. And I'm also going to walk you through a simple exercise that I do with my one-to-one clients that's going to help you identify the hidden things that are quietly draining your energy, stealing your peace, and making you into a man you barely recognize anymore. So today, I want to talk to you about the dangerous problem of being nice and why being nice is making your marriage far more difficult than it needs to be. Why being nice is not helping your relationship with your kids. Why being nice is actually making you an ineffective leader. Because there are a lot of men walking around right now who are thinking they're doing the right thing. Happy wife, happy life. I want to be my kid's friend. I want to be the leader that everyone likes. Now, I might get in trouble for some of the things I'm going to say in this episode, but I can't wait to hear what you think about it. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. All right. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast. All right. Listen, I'm a singer, so sometimes I thought I'm just going to sprinkle in some melodies into my singing, into my podcasting. All right. Maybe you like that. Maybe you don't. Want to say this off the jump. Okay. At the time of this recording, we're currently 2 days away from having our second son. And at the time of this recording, we may be 4 days into this parenting journey. So by the time you are listening to this show, I am most likely sleep deprived and a much more drained version of me that you're going to get right now. So I pre-recorded this episode because I think it's important to get it out there, get it edited, all those things, because next week I'm going to be taking care of my family. All right. Now, let's talk about this idea of being nice. Okay. There's a big distinction I want to make. And this is some of the thing that maybe some of you won't agree with me. I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with me on this, and that's fine. I don't care. It's my show. I'll say what I want. But I believe that there's a massive difference between being nice and being kind. And I think our culture confuses those two things constantly. You see, a kind man is honest. He's grounded. He's clear. He's respectful, and he's compassionate. But a nice man? Well, a nice man avoids conflict at all costs. He says yes when he really means no. He suppresses what he really thinks. And he keeps the peace externally while resentment builds internally. And eventually, the nice guy loses himself. Right? The nice guy finishes last. Maybe there is some truth to that statement after all. Now, how do I know this? Because I've worked with so many men who feel secretly exhausted by their own lives. But when we peel back the layers, and if this sounds like you, if you find yourself in this story, in this narrative, all right, what's going on when we really dig down deeper into the layers is that you haven't been living honestly. You've been living strategically. There's a difference. You've been living carefully, trying not to upset anyone, trying not to rock the boat, trying to keep everyone happy. But the problem is, eventually you start abandoning yourself in the process. Now, for you, this might be difficult to hear if you struggle with being nice. And I'm going to say it anyways because I think you need to hear it, because you know what? The 7 year ago version of me needed to hear this as well. Niceness is not the same as maturity. Sometimes niceness is just fear wearing a polite mask. All right, let me say that one again. Niceness is not the same thing as maturity or wisdom or anything like that. Sometimes it's actually just fear wearing a polite mask. It's your fear of rejection. It's fear of conflict. It's fear of disappointing people. It's fear of not being liked. The problem is eventually that fear turns men passive. And then passive men become resentful men. You see, because the nice guy says, I don't want anyone to be upset with me. But the kind man says, hey, I care enough about you to be honest. You see, there's a massive difference. Nice men avoid tension. Kind men tell the truth. Nice men suppress what they really feel to keep everyone else comfortable. But kind men are willing to have the hard conversations because they actually care about the relationship and they care about themselves. But here's the dangerous part. Niceness looks peaceful on the outside, but underneath it all, there's usually resentment growing. Because every time you silence what you truly need, every time you say yes when you really mean no, every time you avoid honesty to avoid discomfort, you slowly crumble a little bit more on the inside. Your backbone slowly disappears. And so a lot of men have actually spent years becoming the kind of man that everybody else needs while becoming a stranger to themselves. Let me say that one again. A lot of men have spent years becoming the kind of man that everyone else needs while quietly becoming a stranger to themselves. I know how that feels. When I woke up one day and I was like an apathetic shell of a man, a shell of the person I used to be. But the problem is that eventually catches up to you because that's when you become irritable, cold, emotionally unavailable, exhausted, numb on the inside. This is very common. It's not because you're evil or there's something wrong or you don't have a soul. It's because your soul is exhausted from carrying a life you were never honest about in the first place. Which brings me to my next point of this conversation, which I think I'm very passionate about, and I think it's very, very important to talk about because I hear this all the time. It's a phrase that I hear constantly and I absolutely disagree with. I want to talk about a phrase that we've all heard before, and it's this: happy wife, happy life. Ever heard of it? I'm sure you have. Honestly, I think that phrase has quietly damaged a heck of a lot more marriages than it's helped. Because on the surface, it sounds noble. You get it. It sounds sacrificial, selfless, loving. But what it often teaches men is this: that your needs don't matter, that your desires don't matter, that your standards doesn't matter, and most importantly, that your voice doesn't matter, and that your job is to just keep everyone else happy. But over time, the husband slowly disappears. He stops speaking honestly. He stops leading. He stops expressing his desire, stops expressing his standards. He stops expressing his needs, and he becomes agreeable, passive, easygoing. But underneath that, he's frustrated. Because I don't care who you are, nobody can live disconnected from themselves forever without any consequences. You see, happy wife, happy life sounds noble, but if it's lived out long enough, it actually creates miserable marriages. Because when a man constantly sacrifices his voice, his standards, his desires, and his truth just to keep everyone comfortable, eventually he disappears. And when a man disappears in a marriage, resentment takes his place. And what happens? The relationship slowly shifts. You stop becoming husband and wife, and you start becoming parent and child. She manages, she directs, she controls, and he quietly checks out. Now, she doesn't do this because she wants to be domineering. She does this because someone has to lead honestly. And if the man won't, someone else eventually will. And before we get too far into this, brother, I want to be very clear here. This is not about dominating your wife. This is not about controlling your wife. This is not about becoming harsh and cold. It's actually quite the opposite. It's about becoming honest. It's about becoming emotionally mature enough to say, this is what I need. This is what I feel. This is what I desire. And this is what matters to me. That's not weakness. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's healthy leadership. And a healthy marriage is not built on appeasement. It's built on honesty. A healthy marriage is not built on appeasement. It's built on honesty. So if I got a problem with happy wife, happy life, what's the solution? All right. Well, here's a healthier mindset that I want to propose for you today. That's this. Happy spouse, happy house. What does this mean? Both people matter. Both people have needs. Both people deserve honesty. Both people deserve to feel seen, heard, respected, and appreciated. And something I think couples need to understand is this. The absence of conflict does not mean a relationship is healthy. Sometimes it just means that someone is being silent. And if I were to say it another way, is that healthy marriages are not conflict-free marriages. Healthy marriages are marriages where both people feel safe enough to tell the truth. This is where hard conversations happen. This is where honesty is welcomed, where needs are communicated, where resentment isn't allowed to quietly rot beneath the surface for years. So listen, brother, the goal of marriage is not avoiding conflict. The goal is building enough trust that both people can tell the truth, because silence does not create peace. Silence creates distance. And eventually, that distance will turn into resentment, then loneliness, then emotional disconnection. You see, a healthy marriage is not two people pretending everything is fine. It's two people creating enough safety to say, this hurt me. This matters to me. Or this is what I need. Or babe, this is where I'm struggling. That's what creates intimacy. Not perfection, true and genuine honesty. So here is the $1 million question. And honestly, this is one of the most powerful questions I ask the men that I work with. Every man that I've worked with, I've asked this question at some point or another in our coaching relationship. And I think every man listening to this, I think, brother, if you listen to this, you need to sit with this question for at least 60 minutes. And I want you to write this question down on a piece of paper, and I want you to think about it. Don't answer it right away. Write it down, think about it for a couple minutes, leave it for a day, and come back and answer it. Here's the question. What are you tolerating? Seriously. What are you tolerating in your life right now? Let me unpack it a little bit more for you. What conversations have you been avoiding? What standards have you lowered, whether it's in your fitness, or in your marriage, or in your fatherhood, or in your career? What habits have you normalized? What boundaries have you not enforced? What frustrations have you buried? And then the second question is this: what's it costing you? Because everything you tolerate has a cost attached to it. Every single thing. What are you tolerating, and what's it costing you? Hey, brother, let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this. Are you winning at work, but quietly kind of losing ground at home? Maybe you're the guy people rely on. You stay calm in meetings. You carry that pressure all day. And you kind of wear that like a badge of honor. But maybe when you walk through the front door at home, your wife feels distant. Conversations feel shorter. And instead of being excited to come home, maybe work feels easier. Nothing is broken, but something is slowly drifting. And if you're telling yourself right now, I'm going to fix this when things slow down, or I'm going to fix this when things get easier, if you're honest with yourself, you already know they won't slow down. They won't get easier. Well, the high-performance husband is for men who are done coasting. It's for men who want to win at home like they win at work. You see, this isn't therapy. It's not about fixing your wife. It's not for men who want quick hacks. It's for men who want to be calm under pressure, strong in their body, clear in their thinking, and to become the man that your wife and kids look up to with pride. So if you're listening to this and you know that what got you here won't get you where you want to go, I want you to go to dadnationco.com/accelerator or click the link in the show notes below, and then you can apply to join this accelerator and join myself and many other like-minded men who are leveling up in their home, in their health, and their happiness. They're winning all year long. It's a 12-month mentorship. It's going to change your life. All right, now let's jump back into the episode. What are you tolerating, and what's it costing you? And here's the thing. Once you ask yourself this question and sort of embed it into your subconscious mind, you're going to start to see this everywhere. You're going to see in business. For example, a guy starts a company for freedom, right? But then ends up tolerating his clients, controlling his life 24/7. I have clients, that's the exact position they're in. Now he's answering emails at midnight. He's checking Slack during dinner. He's taking calls during family time. He's never resting. He's never shutting off. And eventually he resents the very business that he once loved. And you see, there are a lot of men out there who are entrepreneurs, but they didn't build businesses. They built prisons with nicer branding. They tolerate nonstop access. They have no boundaries. They don't take rest. They have no margin. And eventually the thing that was supposed to create freedom becomes the one thing that's stealing their life and stealing their joy. And listen, if you don't decide what gets access to you, everything else will. And until you learn to answer that question, what am I tolerating and what's it costing me? You're just going to get a whole lot more of the same, brother. And you see this in fatherhood too, right? You tolerate disrespect from your kids. You tolerate chaos in your home. You tolerate emotional absence. You tolerate distractions. I can't tell you how many guys I've talked to where the kids have absolutely no digital boundaries and they sit around the table and they sit on their phones or they don't connect in the evenings because the father is not setting digital boundaries and he's tolerating a disconnected family. But that's the problem, is if you tolerate it, it eventually becomes the culture of your family. Because whatever a father tolerates consistently eventually becomes the norm in his home. This is not just anecdotal. This is not just my opinion. Or I've seen this time and time again. You also see it show up in marriage, right? If yelling becomes normal, sarcasm becomes normal, distance becomes normal, a lack of intimacy becomes normal, walking on eggshells becomes the new normal. And eventually people stop fighting for the relationship because dysfunction became familiar. And now dysfunction is more normal than function. You see this in fitness. Men tolerate getting a terrible sleep. Then they start eating worse. They tolerate that. They tolerate not having discipline, having no movement, no recovery, no energy. And then they wonder why they feel terrible all the time. Brother, literally every area of your life is being shaped by what you tolerate repeatedly in your marriage, in your body, in your mindset, in your business, in your parenting. Because standards do not rise by accident. They begin to drift downward unless someone holds them up. So if you tolerate exhaustion, disrespect, disconnection, chaos, and mediocrity long enough, eventually that becomes your normal. So here is the exercise that I promised you. Here's what I want you to do. This is the tactical piece behind the episode. And honestly, I'd encourage you to actually sit down and write this out. All right? I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to say this. Don't even bother doing it unless you're going to sit down and spend some time with this and write it out. I want you to audit your life, every area, your marriage, your parenting, your business, your fitness, your mental health, your friendships, your extended family, your habits, and your schedule. Okay, pause the episode, rewind it 15 seconds, and listen to that list again and write it all out. And here's why. I want you to, for each of these categories, I want you to ask yourself, what am I tolerating that is draining my peace in all of these areas? Then I want you to ask yourself, what am I tolerating that's making me resentful for all those different areas? And the next question you're going to ask is, what am I tolerating that is quietly disconnecting me from the man I want to become? Right? Or another way you could ask this is, what am I tolerating that's keeping me from becoming the man I want to become? And once you identify it, once you get that list, right? Spend the time, get the list. I want you to ask yourself, what needs to change? What needs to change? Be honest. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have. Maybe it's a boundary you need to set. Maybe it's a schedule you need to create. Maybe it's a digital boundary, phone habits. Maybe it's your lack of honesty. You need to step up, right? Get a spine, have the conversation. Maybe it's your inability to say no because you're desperate for people to like you. Maybe you're like me, where you grew up and you felt like you had to perform for your love. And so then what happened was you grew up and then wanted to please everyone else because you wanted to make everyone happy. Because if they were happy with you, if they thought you were a high performer, then they pay attention to you. right? Well, that just ended up me being burned out, stressed out, and never truly happy with who I was. I never ever felt like enough. But I don't care who you are, man. Unless your name is Jesus Christ, then you have some work to do in these areas. All right? Something's got to change. Something's got to change in some of these areas. Because your life tomorrow will be built by what you allow today. Let me back that up. Let me say that again. Your life tomorrow will be built by what you allow today. So listen, if you feel exhausted, if you feel resentful, if you feel angry or numb, there's a good chance that you have been tolerating things that you were never meant to carry. So I want you to do an audit of your life honestly. And I want you to ask yourself this: where have you abandoned your needs? Where have you stopped telling the truth? Where have you normalized dysfunction? And where have you lowered the standard for yourself or others that you love? Because listen, awareness changes things. You cannot change what you continue pretending is fine. So, brother, we are going to land the plane on this. And I want you to take a look around your life. Okay? And here's why. Because we know that the decisions that we've made over the last 3 to 5 years explain exactly why we are where we are today. So, if I think about the decisions that I was making in 2021 to 2023, 2024, it makes total sense as to why I'm here today. Totally get it. And if you think about the decisions that you were making in 2021 to 2023, right, 3 to 5 years ago, it probably makes a lot of sense as to why you are where you are at. All right, so take a look around at your life, in your marriage, in your family, in your body, in your habits, in your mindset, in your business, in your emotional health. Do you like what you see? Are you happy with it all? And brother, if you are, that's amazing. Keep doing it. Keep putting in the work. You are doing incredible. But if you don't like what you see in any of those areas, I want you to understand, if you want your life to look different in 3 to 5 years from now and in the future, you'll have to learn how to make different decisions. You have to learn how to think differently. And you have to learn how to ask yourself these questions. What am I tolerating, right? This is an example of many of these questions that will change the way you think and change the kinds of decisions you make. Because if not, I mean, we know, you've heard me say this, we know that 95% of the decisions we make every single day are subconscious. That means only 5% of the decisions we make are conscious level decisions. This is why we wake up the next day and life looks the same. And we wake up a year later and it looks the same. And 3 years later and it looks the same problems, the same frustrations, the same fights with our wives, the same challenges, the same 30 pounds we just can't get off. Learn how to make different decisions, or else you're going to wake up 3 to 5 years later in 2029 and to 2031. And that future version of you is probably going to look the same. They're probably going to be still upset and disappointed with these different areas that you didn't dig into. All right? Because here's the reality. Your life is not just the result of what you pursued. It's also the result of what you tolerated. And I know that can feel confronting, but it's also incredibly empowering, right? It's very empowering because it means you're not powerless. You get to decide. Life is not happening to you. You are deciding what gets access to your peace. You decide what gets access to your time and to your energy and to your standards and to your home. And so, brother, you can trust and believe today that every man eventually becomes shaped by what he repeatedly allows. So you track your numbers in business, your revenue, your performance, KPIs, and you know exactly where you stand. But let me ask you this. Do you know the score in your marriage, or are you just hoping it's fine? Because you know what? Most men have no idea. They don't check until something breaks, until the distance is obvious, until the tension turns into silence, until the word separation enters the conversation. And by then, they're playing catch up. And that's exactly why I built the High Performance Husband Audit. It's a free 2-minute diagnostic designed specifically for driven men like you to give you a clear, honest read on where your marriage actually stands. No fluff, no therapy talk, just 10 strategic multiple choice questions, a clear category, and a proven system to help you fix what's off before it becomes something bigger. Because if you're disciplined enough to track your business, you should be disciplined enough to lead your home. So go to the link in the show notes and take the High Performance Husband Audit today. Get your score, get your plan, and start leading where it matters most. All right, let's get back to the episode. So, brother, hear me say this very clearly. The life you have today is not just the result of what you pursued. It's also the result of what you tolerated. So ask yourself honestly, what am I tolerating? And what's that costing me? Because every man eventually wakes up inside the life that he spent years allowing because he was passive, not active. He was acting as if life made decisions for him and not understanding that he was in control. All right, so if there's something in your life that needs to change, you have to have the courage to stop tolerating it. All right, does that make sense? Hopefully that's resonated with you, okay? All right, so that's the big question. What are you tolerating, and what is it costing me? In my marriage, in my family, my body, my habits, my mindset, my business, and my emotional health. I promise you, brother, if you spend the time, this exercise alone, answering this question alone, has literally changed the trajectory of men that I have coached forever. It's improved their marriages. It's improved their relationship with their kids. It's improved their business. They started making more money. They got more promotions. They lost weight. They packed on muscle. I'm telling you, and I know I sound like a broken record, but it's not woo-woo. It's not fluffy. It's real tactical stuff. If you apply what you learned today alone, if you listen to no other episode of the Dad Nation podcast, you just applied what you learned in this one episode, we change your life. All right, brother, I believe in you. You got this, okay? And as I wrap this up, check the link in the show notes below for all the things we discussed today. And I'm going to put all the details of this conversation in the notes so that you can grab them if you need to. Listen, just a heads up, next week's episode, it's actually going to be part 1 and part 2. So in 1 week from now, it's going to be part 1, and the next week is going to be part 2. And I'm talking with Danny Jordan, which is an award-winning author. He's been a producer on some pretty incredible shows like Homemaker Extreme Edition, Extreme Weight Loss, Storage Wars, a bunch of other things. And he has a child with a disability, and he's written a beautiful book series about it. And we have this powerful conversation about how as a man, as a husband, as a father, you can support your children if they have disabilities, and how you can empower them and how you can process what's going on the inside for you. Or if you don't, but you know someone who does have children with disabilities, how you can come alongside them, support them. I can't wait to share that conversation with you. It was probably one of the most powerful conversations I've ever had on the show. We laughed, we cried. It was incredible. And so I want you to plant that seed in the back of your mind next week and think about who in your life that has had situations like that, they've had children with disabilities. This is going to be powerful for them, okay? So that's all for me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode today. I hope it has been powerful for you. I hope it has been empowering, that you feel like you've got a new tool in your toolbox that you can use. And you can lead your wife with this question. You can lead your children with this question. You can even lead your staff members, your employees with this kind of question. And everything is going to improve, all right? If we're all just being a little bit more honest and setting up some healthy boundaries in our lives, okay? So listen, appreciate you, love you. Thank you for tuning in today. And as always, I am in your corner. See you next week, same time, same place. Have a great week. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. All right, remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.